In this video, I'm going to show you how to repair a broken chain. Now typically when this happens, you're not in your driveway, it's going to be out on a ride. So you need to know how to put the chain back together so you can get home from your ride. When a chain breaks, typically what will happen is the link will spread apart, exposing the pin, which causes the chain to break. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually remove this link where it's flared out. So you actually have to shorten your chain by about a link. So because we're shortening the chain, typically this repair is to get you back home, and then you probably want to replace the chain with a new one. Now here's a tip, is when you get a brand new chain, you typically will have to shorten the chain, and when you do that, you can save some of the links that you take out to fit your bike. That way, if you have a chain break that's really not that old, you can add 2 links back to put the chain back to the length that it should be. Also, when you buy a multi-tool to carry on your ride, make sure you buy one with a chain breaker. For this repair, I'm going to use a chain tool that I keep in my home toolbox. So let's go ahead and get started. So like I said, typically when a chain breaks, this wide link will flare out. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to take off this link and the small one. So you're left with a wide link here to match over to the narrow link here. So this is the pin that we're going to take out. So we're going to put the chain in our chain breaker. So turn your chain breaker, and then you'll have to start using a little force once the chain tool starts pushing on that pin. So just keep turning it. Now, this is very, very important. You do not want this pin to come all the way out. So now I'm going to have to put some force on it. There we go. And it got started, so it's coming out. So we want the pin to not come all the way out. We want to be able to remove this wide and narrow link and still have the pin sticking out of the wide link. So what I typically will do is I'll get it to about where I think it should be, then I'll back the chain tool off, and I'll just kind of tug on the chain with a little bit of force and see if it comes apart. So I still have to back the pin out. Now it's getting close, and I don't want to push it all the way out, so I'm just going to go maybe another half a turn to maybe 1 full turn, and we'll see if it can come out just a little bit more. Okay, so I've turned it just a tiny bit more, and let's see if it'll come out. Okay, not quite, so I'm going to turn it just a little bit more. Takes a little bit of patience and trial and error to make sure you get it to where it sticks out but not come all the way out. Okay, so now we have our wide link to match up with the narrow link, and the pin is sticking out. All we're going to do now is put it on the bike and then put the chain back together. Now we're going to put the chain on the bike, starting with the front chain ring. But before we do so, keep in mind that some chains are one directional. Some of the Shimano chains only have the lettering on one side. It's pretty small, but you can see that the lettering is on just one side of the chain. And if that's the case, you want to make sure the lettering is facing out. All right, so this bike is a single front chain ring with no front derailleur or no chain guide. But if you did have a front derailleur, you would have to make sure you put the chain inside the front derailleur. Also, if it's a narrow wide chain ring like this one, you're going to see that one tooth is narrow and one tooth is wide. If that's the case, make sure that the narrow link of the chain goes on the more narrow tooth of your front chain ring. Okay, now it's time to put the chain around the cassette and through the rear derailleur. But before you do so, shift the rear derailleur so it goes all the way down to the smallest cog. So you want to have the rear derailleur go that way, and that would be your hardest gear in the back. So take the chain and just lay it on that smallest cog in the back, and we're going to go around the derailleur. So go around this pulley, and it helps if you have a derailleur that has a cage that is tighter like the Shimano ones. You want to disengage this lever here, so it's on the on position. Just move it over so it's down. That'll relieve some of the tension on the derailleur cage, and then just kind of weave the chain through the derailleur, And make sure you don't go on the outside of the rear derailleur. That has happened before. And then just pull the chain through. Before you put the chain back together, one thing that helps take tension off the chain is if you pull it off of the chain ring and just kind of lay it down so that it's much easier to put the chain back together. Now with the chain through the rear derailleur, we're going to put it back together and we're going to push the two links together. Now if you left a little bit of the pin sticking through the middle of the wide link, you'll have enough to kind of put the chain back together so you don't have it fall apart as you're getting ready to use a chain tool. So that takes a little bit of pushing. So what I mean here is you can see that the chain will kind of hold together. Okay, so we're going to take the chain tool, and you probably will have to back out that pin in the chain tool a little bit so that you can get it on the chain pin. And now we're just going to push the pin through, and you want to make sure you go to where that chain pin is flush with the chain. In other words, you don't want to push it through too far. So, and you can kind of compare it to some of the other pins. So that looks good. Now usually what will happen is when you put the chain together with your chain tool, the link is going to be a little bit stiff. So what you can do is just kind of bend it back and forth, and that will loosen it up. All right, now the final step is to put the chain back on the chain ring. And remember, if it's a narrow wide chain ring, to make sure the narrow link of the chain goes on the narrow tooth of the chain ring. And I am pushing on the rear derailleur cage to take tension off. And then once it's on there, let go of your rear derailleur cage, and that will tighten it up. If you have a mountain bike with a Shimano clutch rear derailleur, don't forget to engage that clutch before you start riding again. So that's really all there is to repairing a broken chain. Any questions or comments, leave them below. Thanks for watching.